let me start by saying I've known Sarah for probably over a decade.
Yeah.
I met Sarah at an organization I was in Houston. Obviously, I was there as business development. And if you want to be really, really good at sales and business development of any type, you need to immediately identify the smartest assets in that company. It was very easy to identify Sarah as one of the smartest assets, but being in the recruitment business development space, I think it was really important to identify also the technology aspect of it. And Sarah is just amazing at dissecting problems, looking at overall hardware, equipment, software. I mean, she's just a jack of all trades when it comes to anything software. I would be in her office quite a bit. ISOs bring a lot of different ideas, and some of those ideas can be challenging. And I think sometimes business development can feel like they can solve everything on their own because they're selling a service of some sort. But sometimes you really do have to peel back the onion. You need help doing that with an expert. And Sarah was just so good at what she did. So good that I decided to create, and you might remember this, I created like an ISO tour of the company. So we would bring ISOs in, you would get a tour of our organization. I would highlight underwriting, and I would highlight legal, and I would highlight all these areas and services to really wow them. But I specifically built a part of the agenda to spotlight Sarah and her team because that was the wow factor. That was the asset of the company that really helped to drive their decisioning. And it was really easy. So we did that tour maybe once and it started to work for me. So I did it over and over and over again, and they got to take pictures. And it was just a really fun way to identify who we were as an organization, to see the people that we had running the organization. And Sarah was just impeccable. They would ask questions and Sarah would answer the questions better than they would ask the question. And so I just continued to lean on Sarah throughout my entire tenure there. She's continued to be that resource for me for over a decade. I can text her with any questions, and I'm just really proud that she's part of my network. As I've gotten older, my circle has gotten smaller, and I've kind of leaned into that because I really like a sniper approach to what people can bring to payments. And Sarah has, I'm so proud of what she's doing at ISV Pay. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing what becomes of ISV Pay from here with her leading the helm of ISV Pay. It's so exciting. And she's probably in one of the segments of the industry that is growing the fastest. And she is ahead of the curve on unattended kiosk software, dissecting any SaaS company that wants to go out there and really lead their segment. Once they get with Sarah, she dissects everything. She asks every question you did not ask, and you're ready to go to market when you lean on ISV Pay. And I've personally just leaned on her for just some guidance here and there on anything technology. So I'm really, really proud to be your friend, and I'm proud to be able to text you and ask any question I have about technology.
And I have to say that when I was consulting for a big ISO, they flew me to Texas and I had recommended
I
Pixie,
remember.
and I got that tour. And that's the first time I met you.
I
This
remember.
was about 10 years ago.
I think
And
I have pictures of you in front
I
of,
brought,
because I
I
would
brought
bring,
them.
yeah, I'd
They
bring
flew me
everybody
to
in.
Texas because I recommended PaySafe as the processor that they should come to. And you were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I met you and the tour.
Yeah.
So I do remember
Yeah.
that because you gave us all a tour.
And did you have fun?
And we closed the deal.
Yeah.
The tour
We got the
also.
tour as
and
well.
and they ended up signing up to be your partner. It did
Yeah.
close the deal.
Yeah.
Personalizing the ISO space, I think, really helps everybody identify who they're working with, who they're going to be able to call. And Sarah was an easy spotlight for accomplishing a lot of signed ISO.
So now Sarah is going to be on the hot seat. So I'm going to ask you the first question.
Okay.
Can you tell us about ISV Pay and the vision behind starting the company?
Absolutely. We started in 2020, April of 2020. And if you're tracking, you know what hit right after that. So I'll tell you that the initial vision of the company shifted quickly as COVID became a reality. And, I kind of coined the three C's, if you guys remember that back in the day, but it was all about convenience, contactless, and cashless, right? Those were the three C's of COVID for the payments industry. And so as I looked at the challenges that we were all facing, businesses were getting shut down. So card present capabilities and those types of things were just not there. E-com obviously picked up as a result, but I also just said, okay, what's the lowest crowd factor and what's going to keep us going through COVID? So I shifted quickly and I said, we've got to go unattended, right? That's the only thing that's going to keep this thing afloat. And so that's what we did. Our go big or go home. One of our first success stories was a conversion of 7,500 kiosks that's sitting in the lobby of Walmart. So we set that thing up and I prayed that night that everything would go well. And it did. And so it put us on the map for the unattended space. Technology is challenging and there's some nuances of optimization. You mentioned that earlier, Gretchen, on, things that you have to know in this industry. But if you don't know it, go figure it out. And that's essentially what the team did is we knew technology. We just needed to figure out the nuances of the optimization and how to manage this through the unattended space, which comes with a new set of acronyms and technology components, the things that we don't deal with as much from terminal perspective and retail industry is, well, how am I going to get Wi-Fi? How am I going to get connectivity? How am I going to get this device to actually work? And so that's what we had to learn really quickly and lean on some partners to get us there. But the company essentially started in the midst of COVID and we pivoted and that's how we started going down the unattended track.
So I have a follow-up to that because you almost answered the question, but what is the difference between integrated payments and embedded payments?
Great question.
So this is my quick synopsis. The Sarah-isms, as a lot of people that know me like to say. The integrated payments is when you're connecting two things together. Embedded payments is when it's seamless. So if you think about, I'm going to say semi-integrated. If you remember the semi-integrated, right? So my software lives in one space and then I'm going to communicate to a terminal. I'm going to light that terminal up. And that's a semi-integrated approach. That's an integration, right? Now, when you embed it, now I am taking that component outside where there's an external call and I'm now embedding that into my software. It's more of an invisible payment transaction versus an indication that you're going to light up and you're now moving from the software to the payment device where it's not as seamless.
How often do you use the word frictionless?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. Frictionless, seamless. Yeah, I like invisible. That's my new word. Make it invisible, right? Nobody needs to know the code and the interaction. And it's the same thing with the payment experience when you think about it from an e-commerce where we used to have embedded pages from a shopping cart or checkout page and those types of things. But the branding was completely different if you remember some of those components, right? So the consumer could tell that I just left this site, now I'm on this side. I don't know that I can trust this, right? So the seamless and invisible payments really comes in from an embedded perspective where the SaaS company, the software company, is taking control of that experience.
And does ISV Pay support both models?
We do. And back to what Jenna was saying, solutioning is so important in having conversations. One of the things that I often ask in dealing with ISVs is tell me what you're doing now, tell me where you want to be in 3 years, and then tell me what your end game is in 5 years. Because when you're solutioning for technology, you do not want a solution for today when that's not going to be what they want in 5 years. Technology should grow, not be replaced. Nobody likes rework and nobody likes waste. It is horrible in the technology space to have either of those experiences.
And that's a good nugget to have from a sales perspective. We tend to immediately go to a sales pitch and forget to ask questions. And I think that is a good reminder or knock at the door. You should ask those important questions, especially when it comes to integrated and embedded payments.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things too, Jenna, that nobody ever asks, everybody worries about functionality and how your customers are interacting. Those are the two things that everybody asks. But what's your operating system? Are you writing in Android? Are you still running Linux? All of those things are so important as you're solutioning for gateway and hardware and the technology space that we have today. There's a lot of options out there, but a lot's moving towards Android. So you have to ask those questions so that you can solution property.
And that's when I would immediately pivot to contact Sarah at ISV Pay.
So you talked about solutioning and the way you approach solutioning. What else makes ISV Pay unique in this space?
My team, one specifically, will always say, I will figure this out, but I have the right to complain, because my motto, one of my mottos, is don't say no. If a customer has a need and there's something that we can solution, we have to figure that out, right? That's why we're in this space. That's what makes us different, is to be able to go in and say, what are your challenges and how can we help solution that? And that looks very different for a lot of different companies. And so ISB Pay is very much different in the sense of, when we worked together in the past, I had a toolkit that I could sell, and I was constrained by the toolkit and the product set of that particular company, whether that was gateway, hardware integrations, etc. ISV Pay, I don't have those constraints. I can go build what I want based on the customer's needs. And we've been stretched this year. We had a customer that was US based and said, hey, I need to go to Puerto Rico. Cool, let's figure that out, right? And so that's the difference, is having the liberty and understanding, while we're still individual contributors in that aspect, like Gretchen, back to our conversation, we are able to be nimble and make those decisions and move a lot faster than the competition.
That's exciting. I mean, it sounds to me that you're not limited. We all have worked for companies where, like, you have a toolbox and you go, and it's like you have to walk away, especially as a salesperson.
Right.
When we're in business development, the hardest thing for us is to say no. But, your company looking to go in and figure out how can we make this work is amazing. I'm sure your business development team loves that, because you giving them a way to continue to grow their sales.
They can think outside of that box. That's the biggest thing,
huge.
right? Absolutely.
Like, you came from corporate America, right? You came from larger companies, and then you transitioned to not just a smaller company, but leading that smaller company, almost like a startup. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, it's quite at the top, is what I always tell people, right? And so when you transition and you're used to having a team and departments, and then you jump over to entrepreneurship, you don't have that marketing team that's there to support you. You got to figure that out. You don't have that sales extension. You are sales. You've got to go sell, right? And then you have to figure out payroll, and you have to figure out residual payments. Like, every aspect of the business as being employee number one falls on you. So it's very quiet at the start. And then as you start to build the team, we're 5.5 years in now, and I've got a team that support me, right? And it's still quiet at the top. I always, say, whenever someone needs something, they have a Sarah to go to, but Sarah doesn't have a Sarah.
Yeah.
So that's why these relationships are so important. As you're younger, coming up in the career that you're in, and whatever that looks like, entrepreneurship or corporate America, these types of relationships, and being able to say, hey, Jenna, here's what I've got, what can I do? Or, hey, Gretchen, this is going on. Or even, Naomi, you help me from a sales perspective, and understanding what's the next step here, right? And leaning on those relationships to help you navigate some of those waters that are unknown, but also just being courageous, right? And saying, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out.
It's a lot of getting your hands dirty,
Yeah.
right? And doing things that you didn't have to do, with large corporates, because you had that kind of support.
That's
Now
right.
you're doing it. You're just completely doing it yourself.
Those individual success milestones, though, are so much sweeter, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't get to share that success with anybody else at the start, because it's all you. And then as you build that with your team and you see your team winning, it's an amazing thing that I never
So
got to
rewarding.
experience in my 20 years of corporate America.
Yeah.
You are one of our partners at NMI, actually. Go Payments
Goat
is
as well.
also.
Mm-hmm.
So what is one of your mottos, and how has it helped you guide your success?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you never say no, right? I think if there's an opportunity and there's a business need behind it, then you figure it out, and you have partners that can help you navigate some of those waters. In addition to that, one of my favorite sayings is, procrastination on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine. I love that saying. I used to
That
use
is
that with my
Love that
kids
saying.
all the time. And it's the same thing with our partners. I mean, there's a couple of non-negotiables. I was just talking to my team this week about it. And, when one of my ISV partners says, "You're an extension of our team." And I've got ISVs that ship me shirts that have their logo on it. And they're like, "Hey, we're going to be at this trade show and we want you in the booth because you're our payments expert." And that's what we strive to do, right? Is to be the payments expert so these software companies can focus on what they do, which is build their software. They know their niche verticals, they know their software and how to manage their customers. We're just the payments arm for them, right? We're the technology, we're the payments arm. We help them understand what that looks like. But those non-negotiables for me to answer that question and some of my Sarah-isms is accuracy and timeliness and being available for our partners. And that is just a non-negotiable for me. If a partner needs you, you need to be available. They expect quick responses via email and they want it to be accurate. They are trusting us with their business and their customers, and I don't take that lightly.
It's great. It's powerful because, I work with a lot of ISVs, and you're absolutely right. They're brilliant. They're code. They write code. They understand their software. They don't nothing about payments,
Right.
which is why a lot of them will just do a plugin. They need to add payments to their SaaS. They go with Stripe. They go with Aiden. They don't really understand payments, but once they're on that road and they're growing their subscriptions and they're starting to see the expense, and they're not monetizing payments, but they just don't understand. I mean, the payment industry is such a complicated industry. Interchanges. So, I mean, we've been in it for so long that we can talk about it in our sleep. But I mean, anybody that's new to the industry, understanding interchange and assessments and all of that. So someone that's building their own software, an ISV, being able to have a company like you come in, consult them, show them how to monetize payments and guide them is huge, because it makes a big difference. A lot of these ISVs are looking for your services. They're looking for the end game to be bought. And when they're presenting to investors and trying to raise money to grow their business, and they have this huge expense that keeps, as they're growing, their expense is growing, to be able to go in there and show them, instead of that expense growing, imagine if that became a revenue stream.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that helps them raise money. I mean, but they can't do it with people like you and people like you that could come in and consult and teach them that, because the payment industry is just very complicated.
Absolutely. We had an ISV probably 3 months ago or so that their residual for monetizing payments has exceeded their SaaS income.
Wow.
I think that's powerful, right? And that really speaks to what the capability and the availability of monetization of payments can be for some of these SaaS companies.